At this year's Conservative Party conference, journalist Fraser Nelson interviewed Iain Duncan Smith at a fringe event hosted by the Centre for Social Justice.
Communities. Once a gang gets rooted into a community, then essentially you get a lot of fear and amongst young people. So either you're forced to become a member of a gang, or if you're not a member of a gang, you will be intimidated by it. So young people won't enter certain areas. My point about work also is affected. Businesses start to leave the area very quickly. Drugs are hugely part of the community. If you're not taking drugs, you're under pressure to take drugs as a young kid. If your families aren't playing ball, then their houses will be ransacked and destroyed. So although they are a small subset of those that took place, what then happened in the riots was an explosion really of a culture that basically said, look, here was an opportunity, something for nothing. This is hugely set by the gangs themselves, not completely. It also comes from the welfare system and the way they behave. There's a lot of other influences. But the gangs are like the far end of that, the sharp end that says this is what we have created in the course of this idea that you bear no responsibility for your actions and nothing will ever happen if you do something which is wrong. Society will just step in and pat you on the back and say, here's a bit more money and go and find another way to do it. We have to change the culture, and for too long successive governments have turned a blind eye and thought you could ring fence certain areas and police them so they wouldn't break out, but they broke out last August. And the point is, that's why that containment policy, I've never believed in containment in anything in my life. Containment didn't work here because basically they just had a view that the rest of the streets were theirs for the picking. A lot of those kids that went on the streets didn't believe that the police would do anything. They were on the run. And the second thing was, they'd been accustomed now to the judiciary either taking a hell of a long time to do anything and then basically not doing very much when it happens.
So you think it's swift and heavy sentences?
I think there's no question in the short term, it was a shock to lots of people that the judiciary actually sat long hours and dealt with people and dealt with them pretty severely within the bounds of the law, and that the police actually this time made a real serious effort to catch them. The cap that we introduced quite recently is already beginning to have an effect. It's having effect in advance of when it comes in. Take the housing cap, which I've already introduced, and the benefit cap, and we're seeing actually from that, the surveys that show over a third of those who are affected are now saying they will seek work directly as a result of the application of the housing cap. The benefit cap starts in April. Within London and the South East, that will have a pretty dramatic effect on the size of families. But there are other things that the Chancellor talked about today that we are looking at, which could actually make that more of a nationwide cap, which is to do with the numbers of children that the state is prepared to support you on. That combined with the fact that I'm saying at the age of 5 you go back to work, when your children are 5 you go back to work. These I think are already and will begin to have a deep effect, so there's more we can do. But it's about saying to people, look, the state doesn't owe you immediately, the state doesn't necessarily owe money for you. You have to take decisions, and you have to sometimes recognise some of those decisions have a cost attached to them. We gain nothing by saying to people, we're going to punish you with higher and higher taxes because they can go somewhere else. They can take their businesses somewhere else. The people that suffer are not the wealthy. The people that suffer are the poorest, who cannot get the jobs. The factories that go in my area of North East London, the problems you get in the north of England when factory owners up sticks and go because they cannot make ends meet. They're the ones that get damaged, and that's the argument we need to take back, which is punishing people because it makes you feel good, makes the country feel bad in the long run. I've never been, and I'll be clear about this from the word go, I have never been keen on the nature of the political intent of the European Union. On that I've absolutely been clear. I voted against Maastricht, and I'm very clear about that. So, the relationship we have with Europe, I think, is by necessity, and I think William's talked about this, the Prime Minister is going to change. It has to change because the nature of what's going on in Europe is going to drive that. So over the next few years, I think we're going to see some very interesting discussions and debates about that. But I am absolutely not prepared to accept that the Commission has any right to tell us anything over welfare at all, and we're going to continue to tell them that in every public sphere that's possible. Coalition for a reason, to end the deficit, to get this economy back on an even keel, but we're in that coalition as parties that don't always agree on some key issues, and Europe is clearly one of them. So the next phase is get ourselves right, get ourselves a platform, and let's go for that election to win it. We have had the lion's share of the things that we need. I can't say we've had everything, but the Conservatives have without question dominated this coalition in terms of what we wanted when it comes to school reform, welfare reform, you know, when you're getting down to issues that are really important with regards to finance, etc. By and large, the Conservatives have driven I think, quite a radical government in many senses. I love the idea of Ed Miliband getting up and talking about being a one-nation Tory. I think it's quite a compliment from somebody from the left like that to want to be a Tory. The next stage is for him to come and join us. At least you can say about Tony Blair, for all his failings, he did try and take the Labour Party in a different direction, more challenging for us, but actually this is not one-nation Toryism. This is absolutely left of centre Labour, who are actually lurching further and further to the left as far as I can see. I mean, here you had Liam Byrne during their conference saying he was going to review universal credit. He had to be slapped down on that because he let the cat out of the bag. They voted against all our housing benefit reductions. They voted against the cap. They voted against all of our changes that have taken place. I think Boris is great fun, and Boris has done something for us which is really important. He's lifted our spirits, to be honest with you. In the midterm of a parliament, in a coalition, it's not easy. We're taking decisions that are really tough. Because every day I walk into my office, I have to tell you, it is really, really tough. You know, I do not take any pleasure out of having to find deeper and further savings when I would rather have more time to make the reforms. But because of the economy, we have to. So, you know, in the middle of that, the public's frustrated, annoyed, fed up, finding life difficult. And in the middle of all that, we have Boris winning an election in London. I think that's great. I think he lifted all our spirits. I'm a London MP. I worked for his campaign. I was really pleased to do that, and I think it's great to have Boris as part of the Conservative Party.